Hello, and welcome to the Mommy Escape Time podcast. I'm Lauren. I'm a wife and a new mom. I came up with the idea of this podcast after struggling to find mommy groups around me when my son was born. I wanted a community of mothers I heard so many of my friends talk about when they had their children. This podcast is to help mothers like me that want a community of mothers to connect with when they have their free time. Together with my usual guest, Taryn, and other mothers, we will share our experiences, not our advice, through motherhood, and hopefully get some tips from you, the listeners. So come join us on the Mommy Escape Time podcast. Hello, and welcome to the Mommy Escape Time podcast. I am Lauren, your host today, and today is about mommy survival time. And mommy survival time means different things to different parents and different situations. So today we are lucky enough to have 4 different people besides myself talk about their ideas of mommy survival time. Now, they're not all in this room, but I have clips of 4 different mothers talking to me about what mommy survival time means to them. And I am currently experiencing it right now. No problems sharing that. But sometimes I do have a full-time job, and my son goes to daycare, and I work, and my husband works full-time also. And it's a lot to then have a child also and make sure that everything gets done. And he's 13 months now, and it can be hard. Because he's at this age where he can crawl and he can sort of walk and he can move around, but I can't leave him really alone to just play all the time. And I can't just put him in something like a bouncer or a seat or something, because he gets very impatient with that and he wants to move around all the time. And our house is kind of structured, so I can't be in the kitchen and he can't be like running around in the kitchen, but we're trying to fix that with some creative baby gate ideas. But it's hard because I go to work all day, and when work is hard, obviously it is also hard then to come home if he is cranky, and currently is also getting about 7 teeth are breaking through right now, and it all happened at once. He had 2 teeth at the bottom that came in Christmas morning because he was cranky and sad and sick that whole morning. And then we had nothing until about a week ago when all his teeth started coming in at the same time. And he's actually been really good. Like, we should not complain at all. It's been very easy, and he has taken nap time is the hardest. He prefers to nap with me holding him, and then eventually I can get him to lay on our bed, so I can at least have 2 working arms. I can't get up really because I just can't leave him on the bed alone. But at least I can get some work done or watch TV or just do anything on the bed. And that's kind of how it works right now. But mommy survival time can be very hard. I have a 13-month-old, which is different than everyone else on this podcast that's going to be on. And I think it's different. It's nice to have the different perspective of the different age groups, the amount of children, the types of children, just so that if you're in my stage of the 13 months, you know that obviously this time will pass in a good and bad way. But just knowing that, this time when you feel like it's impossible to cook dinner and get them ready for daycare in the morning and packing their lunches and cleaning the house and getting yourself, to look halfway decent, and working and staying focused at work and everything like that, it's very, very hard. Especially with no breaks. There's no breaks. It's not like you can tell your child, okay, I'm going to go eat now, and you just quietly sit over there for a half an hour. That doesn't work. So it's that adjustment time for me And I think a few things that I have come up with when things just seem so hectic and I just feel like things are unmanageable. My biggest thing is I don't want to take it out on my child. If I take it out on my husband, that's 50% okay, but I try not to do that. And I always feel guilty about that. But I really try not to take it out on my child because he's not trying to do anything that um, makes me frustrated. But it's just the day I've had and what I need to get done. So, things that I do is I figure out what is the most important thing that I have to get done. And I like to plan ahead and I like to get things done. And I've had to relinquish that a lot, that I just can't have things done ahead of time. They are done day of or minute of, and it is what it is. I don't get to do elaborate foods or meals anymore, and I don't get to prepare his lunches always in advance. And there's so many things that I don't get to do in advance, like these podcasts. Um, so it's just that's one of the things that I've had to do. The other thing is I make a list for my husband because I can't do it all. So he just needs to know what to do and I have to tell him what to do and then he can do it. So that's also helpful. The other thing I do is I try not to make plans with anyone. And that's not always the popular answer, but if I can just focus on my family, that is what works for me. If I don't have to worry about, I have to go see this person and I have to go visit that person and see that one. Family comes first, so I try and focus if there are family members I should be going to see, I see them. And then my friends just have to understand that it's not going to work out all the time. There's so much to do and so little free time that it's just not possible right now. And I would say during the week for me, it's much harder. And on the weekends, and even we just had Memorial Day, so we had a day off. And it didn't seem so overwhelming having that extra day. And on the weekends, not having work and not having work and not doing work has made all the difference in the world. So that's pretty much how I do. I would say I'm looking forward to. I have 3 weeks left to go, and then it's summer vacation, and I'm looking forward to just spending time with my son and not having to pack his lunches every single day. I think that's one of the hardest parts. I can barely pack my own lunch every single day. And now we're talking about having to pack someone else's lunch. And I actually have to pack his breakfast also. And then make his dinner every night, obviously, because that's how it works. So, yeah, that can really get to you sometimes. But, takeout's always an option. So, I want to get into the other people that are going to be on this podcast. So I'm going to start with my friend Teresa. She has 3 kids. She has 2 girls and 1 boy. She has a 6-year-old, an almost 6-year-old. Sorry, she's not 6 yet, but she's going to be 6. A 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. Well, he's 3 months older than my child, so a 16-month-old boy. And Teresa is like my go-to mother that I ask advice for. She's had 3 kids. She has moved every single time right before she's had or right after she's had a child. And I think she's like totally amazing. I don't know how she does it. She used to I guess she is still a school psychologist, and now she stays home with her 3 kids, and she absolutely loves it. And she's just like a very good inspirational mother and someone that I can call to, especially because she had a child, her 3rd child, she had 3 months before me. So she had just passed like all the newborn milestones before I did, and she could really help me out with what she did to see if it could work for me too. So I'm going to let her talk, and then I'll come back and talk about it. But Teresa's going to talk about her ideas of mommy survival time and how she gets through those times.
So, mommy survival time might come on days when I'm really busy and I need a minute, or I'm really tired and I just want a break, or I just have a lot of things to get done and need a way to keep the kids occupied for however many minutes. It can be a few minutes, or truthfully, honestly, it can be a few hours. But my go to is electronics. And I know for some people that might not be a popular answer. First time moms, especially sometimes they think that's a scary thing. But I have learned that it's not going to hurt my children, it's not going to do any lasting harm. It keeps them occupied and it allows me to have some time to myself or get things done that I need to get done. And truthfully, that's how I make it through the days when I just need to, quote, survive.
So that was Teresa, and I liked her honest answer that electronics and technology are not supposed to be used against us, but they are supposed to use to be helping us out. And I saw this really funny thing on Instagram actually today, and it was about I when I was growing up, my pacifier had BPA in it, and I had crib. What are those? I don't know, those crib sheets that block out the sides and those bumper things. And there were no air holes and just a bunch of things like that. And I still survived and I'm a great human being today. So I think I can let my child watch TV for 30 minutes a day. It's okay. And I think, sometimes we get caught up in I want to do this and I want to do this and I want to be better for my child and this and that, and we don't always think about what's best for ourselves and our sanity. And if your kids watch TV, your kids watch TV. You have to do whatever works for you. And if you're totally against TV or any type of electronics or technology, then you need to find something that does work. But you can't complain that nothing works then if you're going to make these absolutes. We aren't against technology or electronics. We don't really watch it a lot ourselves, but I have been starting to let my son watch Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, and he like loves it, and he's enthralled and will watch it, but he doesn't watch more than like 5 minutes. So I take it for what it is. So I do know as he gets older, hopefully, that will be something that I can use, at least just to cook dinner. Just that's all I'm looking for is a 30-minute cooking dinner thing. So I want to thank Teresa for coming on and sharing her advice or her what she does. I shouldn't say advice, it's just what she does. And the next person I'm going to have on is Stacy, and Stacy is one of my sister-in-laws, and she has a 6-year-old daughter who is just adorable. And I actually have known her daughter almost her whole life. And Stacy lives outside of New York City, and she and her husband both commute into the city. And I really liked Stacy's response in what she said about mommy's survival time because it's a little different. It's not necessarily about trying to find time, but it's trying to manage being a good mother. So let's listen to what Stacy has to say, and I'll be back.
So, Lauren asked me to talk about what mommy survival looks like to me. And I was thinking a lot about this today as I knew I was going to be doing this recording. And honestly, for me, the past 6 years haven't been about surviving motherhood, they've really been about relishing it. My daughter, I must have lucked out. She was a super easy baby. And then as a toddler, she was joyful and funny. And now, as a little girl, she's smart and she's curious and she really makes me laugh. And I just really love being in her presence and spending time with her. But don't get me wrong, she definitely has her moments, and I definitely have mine. And so I have learned a few things over the past 6 years that have helped me survive our moments. One thing I've learned is to give her some power and control. I really truly make an effort to give her choices and to then be okay with the decision that she makes. So if she decides that a pink sequin skirt looks great over blue leggings that have an Eiffel Tower print, then I've learned to take a deep breath and go with it. And that actually happened today. And I took a deep breath and I went with it. And she was happy, and we got out the door, and there was no fighting. I let her choose where we go to dinner sometimes. I let her pick the books we read. I consider her input on even bigger family decisions like where to go on vacation and what we might want to do together next weekend. Another thing I've learned that helps me survive some tough times is that it's really smart to cultivate a roster of a handful of local babysitters and other mom friends who can help you out in a pinch. There are times when I have to be at work before school drop off, or I miss the train home and I can't be at school or I can't be at her activity when she needs to be picked up. But I know I have a handful of people that I can reach out to and they can help me and they know that they can do the same. And that's really invaluable and totally gives me a peace of mind. And then lastly, I don't feel guilty if I want to take some time for myself. Like I said, I love being around my daughter and I love spending time with her. But you know what? I also love taking a bubble bath. I love reading a good novel. I like going to play tennis. And that's okay because I know when I take time for myself, then I'm a better mom.
I like Stacy's answer because I think it's so important that we understand that it's okay to have a great child and to be able to enjoy being with them. And even as a baby, to enjoy being with your baby and to enjoy being with them as a toddler. And even as she becomes a little girl, that she can enjoy her time. And that's what she remembers is enjoying the time with her daughter. And that's what's so important. I think the idea of giving her child choice and sticking with that choice so that her daughter feels empowered to make decisions and do what she wants in situations so that she feels part of the family and that Stacy understands that it's okay that her outfit doesn't completely match, but it's okay. You can let it go, and no one's gonna think anything different of you or your child because they have mismatched clothes. I really enjoyed the idea that obviously you can't do it all, that you do need that support system, that if you're running late or there is something that you just can't get your kid, that you have that group of people that can help you out. And you always want to be that person that helps out because we all know that situation where you just can't get out of a meeting and you need to pick up your child. Or, like Stacy said, if she misses the train, it's not like she can just take one in another minute. She typically has to wait like 30 minutes for the next train. And sometimes her daughter is out of school at that point. So I think that's also important. And I think it's good for mothers to help out other mothers, and you can even help out fathers too. That's fine too. But parents helping out parents. And of course, Stacy brings up the part that she doesn't have to spend every minute with her daughter. It's okay to still have enjoyment and activities that you do outside of your children and take time for yourself. And I did a whole podcast with my friend Pyle about that, about how important that time is. I am a horrible manager of that. I'm you always see those things like, don't take this time for granted with your children. They'll be gone before you know it. And I take it, I think, to the extreme of, well, I can't miss another minute because, he's not going to be like this forever and I don't want to miss another minute. So I'm still working on that part, but I think the more and more I hear it and the more I see it, I think that will help me too. So, moving on to the next person, you all should know her. It's Taryn. And she talked about what it was like to have twins and have that mommy survival time. And I think what's different about Taryn that we've heard, Teresa had 3 kids, Stacy has 1, and Taryn has twins, is that I think that when you have 1 kid, you're like, wow, this is really hard. And I don't know how I would ever do it with 2. And Taryn never experienced what it was like to just have 1 at a time. And I think that adds a whole nother level of stress, and um, it's just not typical for most people to experience that. And to have that mommy survival time, I mean, I feel like I don't know when it stops for mothers of twins, or even mothers of multiple kids, because I feel like that's when your time is really, really hard to manage. So I am going to have Taryn talk, and then I'll be back.
Mommy survival mode for me was a lot like what my expectations were of being a bad parent. My husband would work on the weekends and I would be home alone with my twins. And when they were both cranky, it was very challenging to deal with them sometimes. And I would feel incredibly guilty. The only way that I could survive was by putting them in a space where I knew they could be safe, like playpens or their swings or their bouncies, something where I knew they couldn't get hurt and I could step away for a minute. Then I would walk away. I would go into another room. I would cry. I would scream, sometimes into a pillow. I would do what I needed to do so that I could go back and take care of my kids as best as possible. But if I was not allowing myself that time to decompress and relax, I would have taken it out on my kids. I'm not saying that I never took it out on my kids. They were the unfortunate brunt of a couple of major breakdowns, but it was nothing I couldn't handle with a little bit of space. When my husband would get home, I would take a break, even if it was just a walk around the block, but I would just need that time away. And while I felt guilty, it was necessary.
So that was Taryn. And I think what's so important here is that your survival time can literally mean that you need a break for 30 seconds. And I think with two kids screaming and home alone all day, it must have been very hard for Taryn. And understanding that you could put them in a safe space and just walk away. And I think she was very, very honest that there are some times where you literally have to walk away and just scream or cry because it's just so hard sometimes. Not all the times, and not for every parent and not every time. And, I think it depends on your situation. But I think if you are home alone with twins for days on end with very little breaks and no sleep, and you're healing from a C-section and you're trying to figure out your new life and you're breastfeeding and you're doing all these other things and you're trying to still cook and you're still trying to clean and you're still doing all these things, I think that would get to anyone. Sometimes if we have to do more than 3 things in a day, that gets to us. And then you add children on top of that. So I think that having that space, and that you don't always need to have time for yourself physically, but just to be away and not have to be in charge of someone, even for a minute, it can help you to regroup, come back, and continue, not forever, but for a majority of the time before someone else can come and relieve you. Hopefully, a spouse or something, or your own mothers. So I really like the honesty that Taryn shared, and that it's okay to need that time, and that kids can frustrate you, because and they're not trying to frustrate you, but they don't understand that you haven't slept or haven't eaten or haven't had a good day at work, or that there are other stressors outside that are causing you to not be the best mother you can be. And it takes a lot of work, but trying to be the best mother that you can, you don't want to take it out on your child. And that's a big thing to work on, and a big thing that I think everyone works on all the time. So I want to thank Taryn. And then I'm going to move on to my last guest, which is Bridget. And she is another one of my sister-in-laws. And she has a 10-year-old son. So we have a little wide range of ages. And it was funny because when I asked her about mommy's survival time, she's like, well, I think it's something totally different than you do. And I said, it better be, because at 13 months, it better be way different than 10 years old. So I'm going to let Bridget talk and then I will be back.
When Lauren first asked me what I was thinking about mom survival, the first thing that popped into my head was, oh my gosh, snow days. Childcare is still tricky even at 10. When my son started elementary school, it was very tricky because my husband and I are both teachers, but we work in a different district from where we live. So my son goes to one district and we teach in a district about 45 minutes away. So, quote unquote, running home wasn't an option for us. There's so many scenarios for childcare issues. I was making myself crazy. Would my son have a delay and my husband and I would not? Would he have a snow day and we would have school? There were so many different steps and different things. Different people could watch him different days, things like that. It was crazy. Still is. And early dismissals, those were the worst. His regular before and after childcare place used to pick him up and hold on to the kids until parents were able to pick them up, but they don't do that anymore. So I would always think, could he go to the library, which luckily is my part-time job besides being a teacher, and he's comfortable. It's right across the street from the school and he could go there. But what if the library is closed because of bad weather? Could he go to a friend's house? We have another wonderful woman who could watch our son potentially, but sometimes it doesn't work out with her grandchildren's schedule. So I would get a phone call in the middle of my day, early dismissal. So I would have to figure something out within a matter of a half hour and then call my son's school, let his teacher know so that my son knew what to do. Maybe he would go to a friend's house. Um, it's all a very tricky situation. If I know the night before, I try to secure some place for him to go the night before. But I'm lucky that I live in a small village, and I really believe that it takes a village to raise a child, and I've been extremely lucky in that area. And we have been able to make sure that he gets someplace where he needs to be. And we're very lucky. So survival for us is childcare on snow days and early dismissals.
And that was Bridget. I want to thank her for coming on. Because I never even thought about it because she's a teacher. So I figured, it doesn't matter about snow days for a 10-year-old. But that's sort of where she is right now, where her and her husband teach in a district that's almost 40 minutes away from where they live. And that's a big deal when it's a snow day, or one has a snow day and one doesn't. And or the early dismissals, if you don't know, if they think there is snow coming, sometimes we get out of school earlier. And ironically, different districts do it in different ways. And being a distance away, some schools might have early dismissals and others might not. And it happens all the time around where I live also, where one town will have it, but none of the surrounding towns will. And there are certain towns that call early dismissals, delayed openings, or snow days much more often than other districts. And it's hard because some districts are really trying to get the school days in and just have early dismissals or delays so that you can have school. And it's the childcare that's the hardest thing for parents to find because it's unexpected. You don't know. They hardly ever call it the day before. And an early dismissal or delayed opening, they never call the day before. So it's that morning and you don't know what your work schedule is going to be. So I think that, that's them surviving. And I think, again, Bridget brings up the idea that she has to rely on friends and and to have to pay for people to watch her child sometimes, because that's that's your only solution at that point. And it gets hard because you think like, okay, I'm done with daycare and my kid's finally at school and I don't have to pay for all this stuff. And then you have to pay for before care and after care and these contingency plans, because the before and after care doesn't run if you have an early dismissal or delayed opening. So I think that those all are things. And the biggest takeaway that I have from this is that you you really need help from other people, no matter what. You might just need a minute. And I know Teresa and Taryn both brought that up, that you just sometimes you need a minute. And the only way to do that is to put do something with your kids where you can physically take a minute, whether it's using electronics or just putting them in that safe space and walking away for a few minutes. And I think Bridget and Stacy really focus on, you need your time and you need to have those outside people that can help you. And none of these people talked beforehand. It just worked out that way. And I like that there's a wide variety of ideas and things that you might have to do based on your situation and based on your family. So I learned a lot from this, and it's helped me a little bit to calm down from my day talking about all this stuff and listening to all this stuff. So I hope you enjoyed talking about mommy survival time. If you have any tips or ideas, or you just want to let it off your chest, feel free to post on Instagram or on the website and let us know your thoughts on mommy survival time. So I will see you next time on the Mommy Escape Time podcast. Bye.